Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So good news and bad news. Bad news is I lost my cybernetic access field center. So we're going back to this one unless I can find a replacement for it. So this is technically going to be like our mascot for today. The good news. Yesterday was a really huge Puerto Rican event. It's called the Tropical Island Challenge. It was a 1K pricing event, and I won the event. Um, it was 56 players, 6 rounds of Swiss, and then top 8. Not that the player size was not huge. However, uh, there were a lot of really good skilled players at that event. We're talking about players who have topped multiple YCSs, players who have won like ARG events in the past, like really good decorative players who have like leagues of experience with this game, and it was under the new current set as Cyberstorm Axis. I feel like this event was very good as a foundation for me for this upcoming format until we get a TCG ban list, because Cyberstorm Access really changed the meta a bit. It kind of shook it up. Like we got a few powerful new decks, and not only did we get that, we also got a few powerful cards that bolstered a lot of strategies as well. Um, and adding to all of that, like now the meta is technically more diverse, which means it makes it kind of harder to play with a deck not knowing what you're going to be facing against. So pretty much, I valued my skill for this victory. I really fought hard for all my games. I faced good opponents. I faced really good decks as well. Um, but yeah, I'll go over my matchups real quick, and then I'll go with what deck I'm playing. You're already seeing the Visa Starfrost here at the top, which, by the way, is I gotta have to say it. I love this mat. For those who don't know, this is Visa's Armoritara. He comes out in Duelist Nexus. Um, so it's just very fitting that I have a mat just predicated to a deck or strategy that just uses Visas itself. Um, but yeah, like I mentioned before, it was 6 rounds of Swiss. Um, my matchups were in Swiss. I faced against one Purely, one Super Heavy Samurai, one Floanderies, and 3 Kashtiras. My loss in Swiss was to Purely. My Purely opponent, he actually ended undefeated in Swiss. And not only that, but he also made it to top 4. So you can make the argument that he was playing the best deck in the room. And I'm not gonna fault him on that claim, because my losses were pretty much, one of my losses to that deck in the match was him activating Secret Village of the Spellcasters. And you'll see with my deck that was a very hard card to face, because I played too many spell cards in my main deck, and I only played 3 spellcasters in my main deck and 2 in my extra deck. But I'll get into those details when I get to the deck profile. In top 8, there were 3 Kashtiras, my deck, the Purely player that I mentioned, 2 Super Heavy Samurais, and 1 Naturia Runic. That was the entire top 8. I faced Super Heavy Samurais in top 8. Then I faced them. Then I faced Kashtira in top 4, and the finals was against Kashtira. He was a really good opponent. Shout out to Michael. Like, I've known that guy for pretty much a decade now. Really, really good player. He has multiple event tops as well. Um, but yeah, I'll go to the deck and then I'll talk about a lot of things that happened in the matches involving like the deck itself and like what challenges I had to go through in order to achieve this victory. Also, I guess in a good, I guess I can show you. I can mention it. First place was $1,000 in cash, and it was um, a box and a half of Cyberstorm Access. However, since my last round opponent was a bounty duelist that he defeated the last winner of the champion series, and I faced him at the finals and I defeated him. I also got a few bounty packs, which was 18 OTS packs in total. So really good pricing. And shout outs to all, like the entire staff. Shout outs to entire organizers for the event. Shout outs to all of them. Like, the event was ran smoothly. The judges were great. There were like one or two hiccups, but it's just one of those things that are natural with just every event. And the most important part is I have to give mad respect to them because they gave a lot of good pricing despite the low number of players that attended. Um, but I'm just rambling a lot at this point. I'll just get to the profile. Um, so, uh, for this list, two Visas, two Acro, two Balone, two Astra, triple Reichart, triple Fenrir, triple Unicorn, Rice Heart, Scareclaw, Griffin, Enchantress. Triple Planet, triple Arrival, Twinsaw, Raysoth, Theosis, Birth, Talents, Thrust, Adventure Package. So before I talk about the last 5 cards in my list, yes, I'm still playing Scareclaw Adventure, and yes, it's still 50 cards. So before I talk about the last 5 cards, I'm going to preface like why I kept playing this deck that I played. So when Cyberstorm Axis was closely arriving, you probably saw from like my videos and probably saw from a few other areas. I tested a lot of decks. I tested a lot of decks. I tested Purely. I tested Super Heavy Samurai. I tested some other unorthodox strategies that are probably not as popular. I tested Exo Sister. I tested Mathmech. And I just didn't feel that great playing any of those decks. It's not that those decks are bad by any means. Like, some of them are ridiculously strong. However, some of them have very, very glaring weaknesses that could be easily exploited if those decks ever to become very, very popular. Purity, for example, like that deck does not do well against Baguska if that card is summoned. That deck also loses the Dimensional Barrier, which is something really huge. A lot of Purely players, including the guy who got the first. Shoutouts to Andrew. Really good, really good player. Not gonna take anything away from him and his Purely experience. Like, he was undefeated up until round top 4. So that kind of tells you how decorative he was with the deck. But even him and other people were not respecting Nib, and you can make the argument that Nib shouldn't be played this format. However, if you're not respecting a card and then you end up losing to it, then people start like realizing and noticing that that card kind of is not as bad if people are not gonna be playing it, be prepared for it. However, if you do play around Nib, that makes it so your board is very minimalistic with purely, and your cycle for resources are going to be like very predicated to like whatever you draw or whatever you do beforehand. So I ran into a second issue, and the second issue is like, if you remember the last time I profiled this deck, I brought up how Droll was going to be very, very popular in the format, and how much of a hard time I struggle against that card playing this deck. My one of my lot like my entire match loss against Purely, like game 3 was because of Secret Village, but game 1 he double drolled me. Like, he drolled me 2 turns in a row, and I misplayed against the second droll. If I would have played properly against the second droll, I probably would have won that game and probably would have won the match. However, I did not properly play well against it, and that costed me my victory. I can get into more details later. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just tested everything in the format, and I tested this a bunch as well. I tested against pretty much every deck like in existence. I free like Branded, Exo Sisters, Hamurai, like Purely, like if you've seen this channel before and you've seen this deck, you already know that I don't struggle against Kashtira. That deck is not really that hard for me. I also played against the scenario of almost every single hand trap, and I came to a general consensus. I told myself, if I'm going to lose to Droll, at least my deck has to be good against everything else. And I heavily felt that. I felt like the deck was really, really good against like everything else I was facing against. And Droll is just one of those things that I just kind of have to accept when it comes to like facing this deck. If Super Heavy Samurai can do it, then so can I, right? So the 6 changes into my main deck. The first one is I put the second Visa Starfrost. And the reason for that is like, I want to open this card more than I want to draw this card. Also, I want access to this in the graveyard by any means as soon as possible. And you'll see that once you see my extra deck. But you probably already figured it out by now, since we're at post Cyberstorm access. But that was one of the changes I made. The other change I made was I lowered my Scareclaw count to 9 copies. And so I pretty much figured this deck is already consistent, like at opening like your ideal cards to start your plays. So I felt like a total of 10 Scareclaws. I'm also counting Visa Starfrost, and I'm counting actually no, I'm not counting Visa Starfrost, but 9 Scareclaws including the Kashtira one was a good number. With Visas it's technically 12, but you need another monster for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that explanation. The other cards that I cut were Terraforming Rhoda and It was Terraforming, Rhoda, and Foolish Burial. The reason I cut those three is because all those cards make your deck weaker to draw in Lockbird, and like I wanted to have the best opening hands against draw if I were to get drawled, and it worked out. I got drawled like 7 times. Out of those 7 times, I think I lost 3 games out of it. The other 4, I managed to put up not a super impressive board, but a board that was good enough for make it so I could last the next turn and just keep playing. Okay, so what are the last 5 cards? So it's one copy of Dark Ruler No More, 1 copy of Coldbear Grave, and these last 3 are going to be very, very unorthodox. These are one of them is very popular, the other one is not. I'll talk about the more popular one, and this is the card that won me my last round. It won me my first, third, and 6th round, and it also won me the finals. And the card is Kurikara. And the last card, and this won me 2 of my 3 Super Heavy Samurai matches. I think I probably, one of the Samurai games, I probably would not have won at all if this card was not in my deck. This card could not have been any other card. But the card I'm talking about is Forbidden Droplet. But yeah, so these are the last 5 cards that I chose. Call by is kind of obvious. Like you kind of want to an answer for draw if you open with it. I opened this or drew into this like 4 times. And every single time it was a blowout. One of my Kashtira opponents, he opened Shifter. I called by this. Another opponent, he was playing Super Heavy Samurai. He had the Ethereum King, the Regulus, and when he tried to negate one of my cards with it, I just slapped the call by against the Ethereum King, and it pretty much solidified my game versus it. Like I called by Soul Piercer. I called by a Kashtira unicorn that was in the graveyard when he tried to use a second one, and that actually helped me one game. I think that was it for Cold Buy. Dark Ruler, I opened it like I drew into it like 3 times. Every single time was great. I don't regret only playing one because I do play Thrust. I still play Thrust in my list, and Thrust can get you to this card, so that was fine. Kurikara was a blowout every single time, except for one time against Flunderies, but I won that game against Flunderies anyway. In the finals, I faced against Kashtira. My opponent had a Rise Heart, Fenrir, and Red Eyes. We were close to time, very, very close to time, and I specialed Fenrir. He Book of Moon, which triggered his Rise Heart, which I tributed for Kurikara, and then Kurikara swung over his Fenrir. I normal summoned the Scareclaw, special the Scareclaw. I made Tri-Heart and put him on Better Habit. With like less than 30 seconds remaining on the clock. And he didn't have the output for it, and it won me the game. Despite him summoning a card that pretty much is almost an FTK card in time. So yeah, like Kurikara came in clutch. Forbidden Droplet. So with the existence of Super Heavy Samurai, as well as a few high ceiling combo decks, I pretty much came to a conclusion that I wanted a card to face that board that was not a kaiju, that can deal with very specific effects, and I wanted it to be a quick play. And this was the only card. This card is also great because since you are playing Kashtiras in your deck, sometimes your opponent is going to try to book your monsters, or try to like make it so you cannot access your Kashtira monsters by trying to block your zones with monsters, or trying to stop you in your tracks when you're trying to summon with them. I got Book of Moon like 3 times. And one of those games that I got booked, I had droplets, and I sent away my monster with droplets, and it actually like won me the game that way. So my round 6, I faced Super Heavy Samurai. It was the last game. Shout out to Jorge Bernal, really good player. He has multiple YCS tops. You can look him up. He like really good player. He's been to nationals a couple times too. He's played all around the world. He was playing Super Heavy Samurai, and he did a very unique combo. I'll probably make another video talking about that specific combo. But so he was playing Super Heavy Samurai, and he did a combo involving a Link monster called Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll. So pretty TLDR. It takes 2 machines to summon that thing, and that thing can send Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. So on his end board, he had Therion King Regulus, Baron the Floor, 3 Mat Apo, and Albion the Shrouded Dragon. Not the Shrouded Dragon, the new one, the Sanctifier Dragon, which he summoned using Cyberstein that he got from Gear Gaiden X to special summon it, so that thing can summon Gimmick Puppet on my turn. I already opened the Forbidden Droplet, and if it wasn't for this card, I probably would have lost that game. So I drew for turn. I Droplet sent 4. I Droplet sent 4. I negated pretty much everything. I summoned the Scareclaw, and that was and that became Lightheart into Rayphobia, into Reichheart, into Rival, into Triheart, which I swung over the last monster I didn't mention, which was a wagon, the Super Heavy Samurai, and it won me the game. So yeah, I didn't see this card a lot, but every time I saw it, it won me the game. It won me against that Samurai game, and it also won me against versus Flandries. The guy had Fossil Dyna, Endpen, Map, and he had like the full combo or whatever. I normal the guy. He did the map. He summoned, and as soon as he summoned, I droplets him, and I negated it, and then get his entire board, and that was a wrap. But yeah, I did not regret that. I did not regret this decision at all. You could make the argument that I sacked my opponents because I was playing 50 cards, and you're not predicated into seeing these cards as often. However, you kind of have to play for the format. You have to be cognizant that you're not going to be prepared for every single deck, but I try to make my matchup as varied as possible when it comes to like the decks that I was facing. And it worked out because I played against more of the decks that I was already used to than not. And the new matchups like Super Heavy Samurai and Purely, I kind of already had a strategy and a game plan against those. So that's the main deck. Is 50 cards. Pretty much the same as always. I never, like, we're never playing above 50. The math is pretty much almost correct. Like, you don't break on your adventure cards. You don't see, like, you see you have enough starters to play the game. Like, that's pretty much it. I'll go into more explanations after the extra deck. The video is already almost 30 minutes, so I kind of rambled a bit with everything. Extra deck: triple light art, double tryhard, the Charmers, Unicorn, access code, Goddess, Rice Heart, Big Eye, Baron, and the two new inclusions into my extra deck are Vicious Astraud and Chaos Angel. I did not summon this a single time. Every scenario where I found that I could summon this card, there was just something better to summon. Against Kashtira, this card is not that great because they can summon Scareclaw Kashtira and swing a guy over this just to negate it. Against Super Heavy Samurai, you can make the argument that this card is great, but like on the receiving end of Super Heavy Samurai, I did other boards that it was just very hard for them to break anyway. Against Purely, this card's great. However, be cognizant that Santa Claus does exist, and almost every time in testing, when I summon this, I got Santa Claus. However, I still like this card because going second, it really helps push through boards if I end up on Reichard plus Visas. So if I end up on Reichard plus Visas, I can get into Chaos Angel. And since he's unaffected, it's very very hard for him to be stopped. So you cannot murder this, you cannot Veiler this, you cannot imperm this. Well, actually you can imperm this. Don't forget about that part. You cannot like Appaloosa this. You cannot like you cannot Therion King. You cannot Baron. It just helps play through boards if you do summon it. And obviously the two materials that you use for this are the two materials you use for this. So you summon this as a follow-up breaker alongside the Chaos Angel. Small hot take. I don't know why this card is made for it cannot be destroyed by battle. They should have just made it so it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and that would have made it like pretty much almost perfect. However, this card is really really strong. Like I summoned this like 5 times, and every time I summon this, it won me the game. Like no regrets ever playing this card. This card should be in your deck if you are to play this deck. But yeah. Side deck. 2 Ash Blossoms, 2 Ghost Bells, 2 Ghost Ogres, triple Droll, triple DD Crow, triple Cosmic Cyclone. Okay, so what does playing here? I was very very afraid of Mathmech. I didn't know how popular that deck was going to be, but I wanted to be prepared for it, and DD Crow just seemed like a very very solid choice. Why DD Crow over Bestials? The main reason is because you can also play this against Samurai, and you can also play this against Purely. And against Branded, this you can use this against Retribution as well. So and you can use this against Thespian Tragedy. So it kind of worked out. Like, I drew this twice, and both times it didn't do anything, but I was glad I had it in my hand just in case. Um, like, that's pretty much it for that. I don't have to explain the rest of the hand traps. I think everything is like self-explanatory. Like, you would need to respect branded. That's why these four are in here. Um, but yeah, like, that's pretty much it for that. So I guess the last explanation I will make is like, why am I still playing these engines and not playing like Prisma? The number one reason is the Kashtira cards, they cover a lot of grounds, and they make it so you don't lose on the spot into like a lot of hand traps. If I was to play it, and it worked out because I got shifted like 6 times, and every single time they shifted, I actually played through. I actually played through shifter. Like, it was not the most impressive board, but it was a board. It was a respectable board. Like, I had Griffin, Token, Baron, plus one of these guys, and like a rivals twin set. I had like a board with some of these and just follow up, plus Ash Blossom. Like, I made a Rise Heart 1 or 2 times. Also, something really cool to note. It did happen once. This card is a material for Vicious Astrad. But it's also a Kashtira monster. So you can reborn it back with Birth. And you can retrieve it back with Theosis. So that's a neat synergy that's predicated right there. Unironically, this card was like MVP. Not because of its name, but it's because of the fact that multiple times I opened with multiple Scareclaw arrivals, and people make the argument that this card is a brick if you don't open a way to make this card live. But I won 3 games. I kid you not. I won 3 games just banishing this card out of my hand to summon the Scareclaw Kashtira. And turning it into Lightheart into Rhyphobia into like another name, and etc. 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 I banished this out of my hand like 3 times for this guy. So yeah, that's not a lot to say. The adventure package worked every single time. People will figure this out sooner or later, but the adventure package is really strong against Kashtira. Like, I don't get why people are not cashing on that. Like, this engine is really strong. There's a reason this is banned in the OCG. There's a reason these cards are hit on Master Duel as well. Like, unless I change into a deck that cannot play these properly, and these are going to stay in my deck. Like, I broke so many boards with this. I won so many games with this. Like, my Kashtira opponents, like, again, really good opponents. I made it to game 3 with all my Kashtira opponents, but these cards just made the matchup a lot more comfortable than it should have. Against a lot of other matchups, this is not amazing. However, just having an Omni Negate and like multiple bodies on board, it's just a good catalyst for like against any matchup with these. These cards bait a lot of negates as well. It's like, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in to that profile. This was a lot of fun, amazing event. I'll probably do an opening for like all the prizes in another video, and I'll probably share some thoughts. I ramble way too much on this deck profile, but that's how I roll. And I just want people to see this deck just to understand like what's going on. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Keep practicing and keep dueling.